Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Hitakiri Singh, and today we're going to learn to play Monster Hunter. So many new players to this game, or this franchise, end up playing this game called Hunted by Monsters, where you're just running around, attacking wildly, healing, and avoiding monsters like the plague, basically. And it's frustrating, and you're not having as much fun. The game is beautiful, you can do some cool things, but the game ends up being very frustrating for you. And I want to help avoid that stage of the game because this franchise is maybe the greatest gaming franchise of all time. This game might be the greatest game of all time by the time it's said and done, and sooner than later. And it's going to introduce many new mechanics, so some of you experienced players might also find this very useful, but primarily this video is going to be made for those new hunters that are going to join the Sixers, basically. You know, I'm a fiver. World created so many fivers out there, and now we're going to have even more Sixers, and I want those Sixers to understand what is now available in this game, what we can do with sneak attacks, what we can do with wounds, what we can do with our Seikret. All these new aspects to the game, the new mechanics, are really going to create scenarios where you're in charge. That's the whole point of this video. It's not about speed running, it's about approaching hunts, knowing what to do, so you're actually hunting these monsters. It's your game. You're the bully. That's the way I like to approach Monster Hunter, the franchise, as it is. I like to create my builds and my playstyle based around this aspect of I want to be in charge, I want to damage, I want to counteract whatever the monster's doing, whether it's with skill, whether it's with equipment or armor or traps or the environment. I want to learn these things and apply them to the game. And when you do, this game becomes immensely satisfying. The Monster Hunter franchise is traditionally not the best at explaining some of the finer details and the most useful aspects of their mechanics, and that's kind of up to us, and that's how we develop and bring you content. So let's go. And my favorite new addition to Wilds is the Seikret, and he is the Goodest Boy. First of all, Capcom, if you do not utilize the DLC and let us do combo attacks with the Seikret, you're missing out on an opportunity. But you can do everything with him. You can heal, you can sharpen, you can buff, you can gather, you can do aerial attacks, you can do cavalry attacks. He's your primary mode of transportation. He's amazing. He's adorable. I love him. He's my squishy. Now, this is a situation where I don't use the Seikret. I have to put away my weapon, I have to heal, I'm close to the monster, so depending on what attack he chooses to do, I could get, damage, and then I have to find a way to get in there and get into my damage loop, With the Seikret, this is a breeze. I get knocked down, he picks me up off the ground, people. I'm instantly going into a heal, which is noticeably faster, and I can jump off of him and do an aerial attack, which in Monster Hunter are always good to do, very high damaging. This is a heal, this is however long it takes. On the Seikret, it's noticeably faster. I think it has Speed Eating 1 built into it, basically. Now you have certain iframes, invincible frames, when you take damage and lay on the ground and do no input and just lay on the ground. Now with your Seikret's ability to pick you up off the ground, you can really use that to expand your defensive openings, I guess, if you want to call it. And look at the distance. He's not attacking, but look at the distance, how quickly I can get away from him if I need to, Now these aerial attacks are always powerful, but they always loop into a juicy, high damaging, meaty part of your combo, so you can go from, recovery situation to high damage output instantly, as quickly as possible. I don't think it does much for your sharpening ability. I think it's just related to speed sharpening. But, of course you could end up getting the mount, and mounts are really powerful in this game. But bottom line is, if you're not in fisticuffs, if you're not immediately engaged with the monster, you should always be on your Seikret. And if there's any situation where you need to heal, sharpen, buff, or just go from area to area between monster fights, always use your Seikret. He's wonderful. He's amazing. He truly is the Goodest Boy. I'm going to give him the name of Nova. It should be a her, because Nova was a girl. So Nova's my German Shepherd. Mounts occur when you land enough aerial hits on the monster. You're generally good for about 2 of these per fight, if not more, depending on your weapon and your build. You have a few options while you're up there. I really wouldn't worry about brace or light attacks. You're primarily going to chop down and create some wounds. You have a mount finisher that you can do on one of the wounds, and it's just very powerful in this game because you're going to be able to set up focus strikes for later and create a large knockdown window for a full punish with your squad. A couple things to remember is you don't do as much damage on a monster that's mounted, so don't do your big attacks when the monster is mounted. Wait for the knockdown. When you do get the mount, you're just going to start opening up wounds with your heavy attacks. As soon as you see the camera focus in like that, you're going to move to another part of the body. You're going to open up the head wound, but don't ever do the mount finisher on that one. You want to leave that one open so people that might want to destroy it on the ground can destroy it. And you open up however many you can. In the Arkveld, it's 3. And then I generally destroy the one on the mid back because that's kind of the hardest one to access depending on what weapon you have. So I use my mount finisher on the mid back one. We have a bow user. I love you, Hikaru. So the wounds didn't last long, but this knockdown is now a full punish for a full TCS or anything else that your crew has ready for this monster. And this is when you want to unleash Fury on it, not during the mount, because again, you're going to do reduced damage. And really, that's about it. Approach every single mount like this, open up every single wound, destroy the one that's inaccessible, and then maximize your damage punish. Notice when I attempt this TCS not in focus mode, I'm pretty much limited to aim it in the direction I'm facing with very little variation. This is why you want to use your focus mode and probably toggle on the options that allows it to stay on rather than having to press to keep it on, and also increase the camera speed to the maximum. This is the glitched out wound with Arkveld, so I always wanted to hit that same wound over and over again. I don't even move my character at all. I just stay in focus mode, realign my cursor with my right stick, and I hit that wound every single time with 100% accuracy. So when your goal is to make sure you hit the monster, make sure you're in focus mode so you accomplish that every single time. Use your focus mode. You have a variety of pods in your arsenal in Monster Hunter Wilds, and depending on which one you use, they can be a godsend in any given fight. This is a flash pod I use to get out of Arkveld's grab attack. You get exposed to some dung pods early, and you see how they're used to keep other monsters away. Screamer pods to bring out tunneling monsters, but 2 I really want to focus on are lore pods. Lore pods, Zoe immediately fires a lore pod, and I want you to see him take a beeline and goes directly to Zoe, who's just chilling under an environmental trap. And this is how he's going to get him to come to him rather than lining up a trap and waiting for it or hoping something like that happens. Arkveld was kind of hesitant to go into certain vine traps. You hit him with the lore pod, he comes to you. You have a monster that's not setting up for your EI spirit slashes, hit him with a lore pod. See what that does and see how often he comes at you, you know? So, you know, this game is going to have a huge amount of environmental traps, and you don't want to just haphazardly have them hit them. Hit him with the lore pod, get him to come directly at you, and every one of these situations will go in your favor, and they all lead to giant damage openings, not little stuns or flinches. They're always big knockdowns. This is a flash pod. This is the second pod that has great usage. I flash Arkveld out of the sky when he's doing one of his major attacks. It caused a large knockdown. It completely shifted that moment in battle where he's trying to hit us with a supernova type attack, and we get him on the ground to punish, open up wounds, and this whole, you know, we get a wound knockdown right here. This whole damage sequence started with a flash out of the sky of a monster doing its ultimate attack. So these 2 pods are going to be important, but mess around with all of your pods. They're going to be important in every fight. Another new addition to Wilds is the sneak attack, and this is performed by being undetected, usually with a ghillie mantle, and you sneak up behind the monster, and you'll have a prompt that makes it available to do so, and generally there's going to be this scream that follows, and that's going to be kind of important as well. These are great opportunities to start off the fight with big damage, and you can also do this attack concurrently with your squad mates if you all just gather together and be a little patient and launch your attacks together. I might have jumped the gun there. But generally every weapon has a punish for a roar, whether you use your iframes on an attack or you dodge it with a roll and do some kind of punish. And that roar is always going to come up afterwards. So based on what weapon you have, you're going to be in a good position to get some early damage and some good charges or whatever else you need to do with your weapon early. I went from no gauge to red gauge in about 10 seconds with the sneak attack cancel. Also, you're going to have wake-up attacks when the monster's asleep when they're low on health, or if you put them to sleep. And somewhat you can use these for traps and paralysis and things like that too. But you want to maximize these damage situations. Here we want to make sure we place down bombs. I put down some traps, and then I switch over to the gun lance to do the big boom attack. Your wake up attack always does double damage, so as much damage ticks as you can get for the wake up attack, they're all going to do double damage. So he's going to wind up his hammer here. So we're trying to get as much as damage possible on that wake up hit to create situations at the end of the fight. You know, when a monster is very low on health, they're at their most dangerous. They have their biggest attacks. They do the most damage. So when you do a wake up, see, we're being patient. I don't even have my big bang attack ready, so we're just being a little bit patient here because we want the end of the fight to be super easy. We don't want to have to struggle. AT Velk was notorious for this in Monster Hunter Iceborne. You'd wake that motherfucker up and he would kill everyone afterwards. So don't let that happen to you. Be the bully. Do as much damage as humanly possible when the game gives you those opportunities. All right? You also want to learn monster weak points. These are situations where you can use a focus strike on a part of the monster after an attack or some animation that's not a wound, and they always result in a large knockdown with a large punish window. And they're different per monster. For example, in focus mode, you'll see a color change to the face of the Raidao, and the Balarhara has a blue opening on the mouth during that lunge. You can focus strike that as well. So there's going to be some color associated to the spot that you can do the weak point attack on, and again, they're always going to be large damage opportunities. It's not always the face. During this grab attack that happens, actually 2 weak points open on Arkveld's face and his hand, so you can free me, you know, so those are 2 opportunities for focus strikes. I just used the pod there, you know. So the reason this is important is because once you start recognizing these situations, you understand that after certain moves, these weak points are going to happen, then you can expect them. Me and the boys, Teko, Zoe, the squad, we know there's a weak point opening after this attack. I actually get it, but we're all in his face. We're ready for the knockdown. We're all ready to maximize this damage opportunity, wound, get our damage, and go on to the next foe, because this one's almost gone. He's not going to last too long. So yeah, understand where those weak points are and what they're going to do. Creating and destroying wounds is going to be the high damage output mechanism for Monster Hunter Wilds, much like Tenderize was for Iceborne. One thing I learned in my testing of this mechanic, and I have much more testing to do, but there's a few things I think I can bring to the table as certainties. And one thing you really want to learn is where wounds form on monsters and how many. The answer could surprise you because there are many spots that a monster can develop multiple wounds. So this is going to be the key to have these bullyable fights. You want to open up as many wounds as possible. You want to know where those wounds open up so you can destroy them and make quick work of these monsters. And I did a fight with an Arkveld, and I'm going to clip together every wound that appeared in that fight. Not to say that that's going to be every wound that does appear on Arkveld, but I wanted to do a little testing. So we started off with a mount, and I got the first 3 wounds that you normally do from a mount, and those are all 3 wounds you can open up naturally as well. So I wanted to see if they would reopen, and they do, and we'll get to that. This is the next wound we open, and make note that it is on the wing, but it's like mid chain level. You know, it's not on the arm, it's not on the tip, but it's like right in the center of this chain. You kind of get a better view of it here when I finally do destroy it. So this goes to my point of certain spots on the monsters are going to have multiple areas to create wounds. There's a wound here that seems to be on the right side of the head. I'm not in focus, but you can see the scar and the red marking. So we've had a top of the head, a right side of the head, and this is another wound that develops what seemingly looks like on the left side of the face. And I'm pretty sure that these are the situations because later in the fight and concurring with other squad mates, we've all noticed that especially on the head, there seems to be a left side of the face, the right side of the face, and one directly on top of his head that's generally created by wounds. But this one, I'm pretty sure you can tell when he turns around, is a left side of the face wound. Okay, what else do we got? These are the back and the head wounds from the mount areas that they opened up naturally. So all those mount wounds are going to open up once naturally by just doing attacks depending on your weapon. I had another one develop here on the arm. And this basically shows that the wounds that we're talking about on any side of the arm are going to be on both of them. So this one is actually on the hand, not on the chain. So there's chain, and then there's mid hand. This is a wing tip. So on the wing tip also there's a wound. That tail wound also redeveloped. And now when I got another mount later in the fight, all three of those back wounds were opened again. So mounts will open up the three back wounds every single time, regardless of if you have opened them or not before. And the three mount wounds that you get from a mount can all be opened up once naturally in the fight, regardless of if you get a mount or not. So that was really important information for me to know. I'm also testing to see if once a wound is destroyed, if it will open up again in the same spot. I'm not quite sure about that. The answer might be no. If they do, I believe they're going to be on timers, but we'll get more into that as well. So you want to learn in any fight where are all the spots that these monsters will create wounds, or wounds will be created, so you can cycle through those areas, create as many wounds as possible, and get as much damage. Now that we know where the wounds are created, the next thing we want to know is which ones topple. First of all, every weak point attack, the ones that develop after attacks, they will always cause topples. As far as everyone I've seen, just as a mechanism, they cause large knockdown windows. Now, that was a weak point attack on his face, but you would think if there's a wound on his face, it would also topple, but no, it doesn't. It just causes this flinch. What does cause topples is when you destroy a wound on the dominant leg of the monster. This is a Ray Dow. His more pronounced back legs you see are kind of the signs of stability. I break that wound. Actually, I broke both of them, which is not a good thing. But it does cause the topple. The leg wounds cause the topple. But the reason that's not a good thing is he actually had two leg wounds there, and each leg wound causes a topple. You'll notice here that a squad mate hits one wound on the leg, causes one topple, and while that was happening, here goes his wound, and then I connected with my wound, so we actually got two topples out of it. And then Zoe actually breaks a neck wound. That's a new wound that I didn't really notice before, and that also caused a topple. So I didn't know about the neck wound. I didn't know it caused a topple, so I'm learning as well. Now for Arkveld, it's not his back legs, it's his front legs. So you'll be able to tell on the monster whatever limb looks like it's more pronounced, used for, like, think of it in a physics sense, used for the stability and the motion of the monster, or the strength in its movement. That's the one that you want to break. Now for this Gypsaros, I actually got the topple for breaking the wound on the wing, and it also happened for the leg as well. So you can have multiple wounds that cause topples as well. Alright, this is interesting. This is the glitched wound for Arkveld again. There's only one glitched wound on his body. I don't have access to it, and I have 3 teammates, right? So how did I get 6 wound pops that just happened here? There's 3 teammates that can see it and 1 open wound. Something is going on here. So I was testing some other things in other videos, and one thing I did know is when 2 separate players strike 2 separate wounds, and I only hit 1 and he only hit 1, we both got the benefits as if we had striked multiple wounds. And so what it looked like is happening in that clip is if 2 people strike a wound, you're getting 2 pops instead of 1. That's the only thing that could be happening there. And this makes it really interesting because it happens again right there at the end of that fight. You know, all 3 of my teammates, I don't see the wound. They hit it. They all get a clusterfuck of wound destruction right there, you know? So what my feeling is it's happening is when 2 squad mates strike a wound, it counts as multiple burst. As we discussed in other videos, you can hit multiple focus strikes. And what this tells me is if you can get into a situation where there's a couple of open wounds that you can create, let's say on a mount or another open situation, both teammates, all your squad mates should go attack the same wound as often as possible, whether you get it or not. Because if you get these multiple strikes right here, you get additional damage on each additional pop. It went from 177 for 1 wound to 177 plus 295 on the second wound. And what if this is happening, you know, if we both strike 1 and both get 2, is it now 12 pops instead of 6 pops between 3 players? I think so. I shudder to think what it's going to be like if multiple people in a squad can hit 3 simultaneous wounds. Can you imagine the damage that can be outputted in that situation? I don't think that level of damage would be able to be approached by anything else in the game. Anyways, let's wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video, and here comes the outro.